Hey everybody, welcome back to the Living in Maryland channel where we discuss all things living here in the great state of Maryland. So today we are going to be discussing about the things that are getting more expensive and the overall higher cost of living here in the state of Maryland. So we've had a few things come up over the last couple months where I was like, a few bills to pay, property tax bill came out, and I realized, man, life is getting more expensive here. So maybe we should talk about it, give people an idea of what to expect and what things are on the rise here in the state of Maryland. So the first thing that I want to jump right into is going to be the cost of property taxes if you are a homeowner. So this is something our property tax bills come out in July of every year. That's the kind of when the new bill comes out. It's when the new assessed value comes into play for property taxes. So then you pay it in July. You can either pay it through the first installment through December of that year, or you can pay the full year through the end of June for the following year. So a lot of people usually just pay them in those two installments. So it's kind of hard to break down exactly what the rate increase and stuff like that is, but you know it when you see it, and I definitely felt it. So when I was breaking down my property tax bill for my property here in Howard County, Maryland, my property taxes jumped over $1,200, almost $1,300 in 1 year here. So it was pretty significant. Now I do want to break down here and explain that in the state of Maryland, we do have a homestead tax credit that every homeowner can apply for as long as you meet two criteria. One, if it's your primary residence, so if it's something that you are owner occupying, and two, as long as it matches your if the property that you're living in, that address is on your driver's license. Now there's a few exceptions to that, I think, with military and things like that, but those are kind of the two main ones to where it kind of cross-checks the address with the MVA, that's our Maryland DMV, and then as long as it's your owner occupancy, or you are going to owner occupy it, then you will have no problems go ahead and getting applied for that, getting that approved, and then making sure that your property taxes don't increase over a certain percent. So it's really not necessarily a fixed tax credit, but what it is the state of Maryland stepped in and said, okay, if you apply for this and you get approved for this homestead tax credit, you're at the state level, the county or the taxes will not exceed more than a 10% increase any given year. So, they can still go up, and they will go up, but they won't go up astronomically or crazy significant numbers. So now, and then a lot of times the county has stepped in and they've set their own ceiling. So the state says you can't increase taxes more than 10%, but then at the county level, usually there's a lower ceiling. So for Howard County, and I have to check all the other counties, but for Howard County, just to give an example, the ceiling is 5%. So they can't increase your property taxes more than 5%. So it helps, but your property taxes are still going up, and we're still seeing that as a significant source of inflation here in Maryland. So instead of my property taxes going up almost over $1,200 a year, they show a credit on your bill, and it reduced my property taxes down to an increase of roughly $500 instead of the $1,200 and change. So still significant, but something to just kind of be aware of. And that homestead tax credit is very important. So of course, if you're owning an investment property, you're not going to be able to take advantage of that. There's going to be certain things where it's going to hit some people harder, but for people who are just buying a home, they're living in it, and just kind of doing it that way, the homestead tax credit is a must. It's free to apply. And it's good for as long, once you get that approved, it's good for as long as you own or occupy that property. So definitely worth doing. That's something that I walk people through. Once they close on a home, in roughly 30 days, you're going to show up on public record, and then you are ready to rock and roll and get applied for that. All right, next item that is on the rise here in Maryland that I wanted to talk about. And again, these are just kind of things that I'm personally experiencing in my life as a Maryland resident here, as a homeowner here, that I am kind of sharing with you guys. So the next thing is homeowners insurance, and it's very noticeable. So just 2 billing cycles ago, so roughly 2.5 years ago, I was paying under $1,000 a year for my homeowner's insurance policy on my home. And I was paying $935 a year. I chose to do a higher deductible to try to drive down my annual premium as low as possible. So I'd take a $5,000 deductible, and that's what I was paying, and it was, seemed pretty good, and it was pretty thorough, policy. So, but the next year it jumped up a good 35-40%. And now this most recent time when I went to renew, they notified me that the that the premium was increasing to almost $2,000 a year. So I had to, I started shopping that. Had to call and hop on the phone with my broker. I go through a broker here in Central Maryland, and just kind of get the breakdown of what is going on, why is this happening. I've never even filed a claim, so why is this just going up so crazy. So, they explained, a few different reasons, of course, higher costs in labor, higher costs of materials. So of course, one of the biggest things that a homeowner's insurance company is looking at when they're issuing a policy is the cost to rebuild if there's a total loss. So those two things are gonna naturally have a pretty significant, impact on what drives the premium. And then another big thing is, with the Carolinas over the last, couple years, just experiencing the natural disasters that they've had, is Maryland, from what I was told by my broker, is Maryland is tied in with the Carolinas as far as like the mid-Atlantic region. So I think a lot of, we're just kind of tied into them in some sense. So if there's a lot of claims down in that region, that was, that is impacting the state of Maryland. So those were kind of the three biggest reasons that they explained to me as to why the cost is going up and so noticeable in the recent years here. And then of course, just overall inflation is probably going to play another factor in that as well. So, pretty significant increases when it comes to homeowners insurance, and very noticeable. It has not been settled the last couple of years. So, we'll see what happens, next year. Hopefully that starts to settle down and kind of level off. But so ultimately for me, I got that notice that my policy was now that I was paying $950 for a year. That same policy was going to be costing me almost $2,000 a year. So believe it or not, I was getting higher quotes from other companies. So the broker that I was going through seemed to have a very competitive rate. Hopped on a phone call with them and tweaked a few things. Probably raised, I forget exactly what I did, but I kind of probably took out a couple things from the policy, or raised a couple. Lowered a couple figures or something like that, and got it down to roughly $1,800 a year, but still very, very significant increases. So if you are looking to buy a home, these two things are going to have an impact. So what I like to do is, when you're looking at property taxes, in a listing, in a residential listing, whether it's on Zillow or the MLS or whatever, you always want to verify the property taxes. We don't know, when you're looking at that figure, you don't know how much of a credit the seller is getting for a homestead tax credit that, and hopefully if you apply on time, that tax credit you'll be able to pick up from where they left off on the assessed value. But you want to make sure that you're verifying that it's not reflecting a previous year, or a year in, more significantly in the past. So you can go directly to the county website and you can confirm exactly what the property taxes are. You can see an itemization. So that's always helpful if you become a serious home buyer. And then really shopping, giving a good 3 to 5 homeowners insurance companies a call, and making sure you're getting a good competitive quote for homeowners insurance can be very helpful, because those two things have been, very noticeable over the last couple of years as far as, being on the rise of costs here in the state of Maryland. All right, next is going to be the increased cost of registering your car here in the state of Maryland. So this one, I didn't realize there was a law passed. I think it was in 2024, so sometime last year, that contributed to these rise of costs for registering your car. So I don't know. I hopped online, because I got a little frustrated when I got the renewal for my wife and I's car at the same time. And so I hopped online and I started looking into it, and it was confusing. Definitely they passed a law that increased the rates. But when you started breaking it down, there was a lot of factors and things, so it got confusing. But here's what I can tell you at the simplest level. So we both have mid-sized SUVs. So when I registered my car 2.5 years, so I re-registered it about 3 months ago. So, almost 2.5 years ago. And in Maryland, and let me explain this too. So in Maryland, Up until last year, there was only one option. So you go to the MVA's website and you register your car, and it's for 2 years, and that was great. I was always used to registering my cars in California. You have to do it every year, and it was just kind of one more thing to do, more frequent. So when coming to Maryland, it was nice. It was every 2 years. You kind of more spread out, which was cool. So here's what I can tell you. So almost 2.5 years ago, when I registered my vehicle, it was roughly it was $150 for 2 years. That was the cost, and it seemed pretty reasonable and pretty affordable. So when I got the renewal just a few months ago, that we paid $383 to register the same vehicle. So I've had the same car here for a few years. So it was just a crazy increase. So and then here's what happened. So the state of Maryland is facing a $3 billion budget deficit. And I think a good chunk of that, or a big part of that, is Maryland's highway maintenance and all that kind of stuff. So I think a big part of it is trying to recoup money for that. I know that the lawmakers spoke to just kind of increased use of hybrids, electric vehicles, and things like that is contributing to that. Less gas tax that they're collecting. So they passed a bill that is significantly increasing that cost. So and the other thing that's new too is that there's no longer just the 2-year option. So you can do a 1-year option, 2-year option, and 3-year option. You can choose, and they also allow you to do almost less than a 1 year. I think you can pay like 6 months up front, and then you can lay away 6 months and pay the rest of the 1 year. So they give people a whole host of options now, where before you only had one, which was registering it for 2 years. So, and the reason why I say in the beginning of this segment here was that it was a little confusing is because I think they added things like, the weight of the car, I think, contributes to the cost. So like if you're driving a sedan versus, a big Suburban, I think that's going to factor in significantly to what you're paying, and then a mid-size SUV. So I think our cars, my wife and I's cars were impacted there a little bit by the increased cost, a little more so just because of the weight of the car. So I think there's a lot that goes into that, but it was very noticeable. And I was kind of stubborn, and I was like, I want to pay for 2 years. I don't want to have to do this in 1 year. So it costs $383 times 2. So you're paying almost $800 in one foul swoop to register 2 cars. It felt it was a hard check to write. So we'll say that, but it was very noticeable, and that's something that hopefully does not continue to increase. But it was very noticeable here in the recent months that Marylanders are now going to have to endure. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And as always, just like to mention that I am a licensed realtor here in the great state of Maryland. So if you ever have any real estate questions, if you're wondering whether buying or selling a home here in the state of Maryland is the right move for you, feel free to reach out however you are most comfortable, and we'd love to have a conversation with you and see how we can best assist. And then wrapping up here with the last item is going to be the cost of electricity. So and now we have BG&E here in a lot of Central Maryland. As you get closer to DC, like in parts of Prince George's or PG County and Montgomery County, you're going to see Pepco and a couple other different companies. But BG&E services a lot of Central Maryland, and they have announced that there's going to be increases here in 2025. I don't know exactly how significant it's going to be. There's a new Empower program here in Maryland where they're, basically the government's just kind of going out there, and they're trying to have people like an energy reduction in consumption kind of thing. So they're trying to do that across the board. And when I've kind of looked into this, they've mentioned that that's a portion of kind of why we're going to be seeing that increase. But regardless, whether, if you have, we're all going to be dealing with that through, electricity and natural gas costs. Now, I can't speak significantly to natural gas. I live in a home that's all electric. But I know that, people that I know who have natural gas as well, they are seeing increases in that as well. So overall energy costs are on the rise here in Maryland. I don't think it's going to be anything crazy, drastic. It looked like the numbers that I saw mentioned like the typical consumer here in Maryland is going to see an average increase of roughly $30 to $40 per month. So, again, not anything crazy, but something that is on the rise, and is an little extra money that's going to be coming out of people's pocket each month here. So, so be on the lookout for that as well. And again, there's going to be some other things that are probably on the rise too. Of course, walking through the grocery store and all these things, seem to be going up as well. But those are kind of the main things that have stood out to me here in the last few months, especially in the year of 2025, of things that are on the rise, things to be prepared for. So I'll try to keep you guys posted if I see anything else significant. And as always, thank you so much for watching this video. And if you ever have any real estate questions, please feel free to reach out anytime, and we'll see you at the next video.